Okay. And there's also another funny scene. It doesn't really have anything to do. This is really just kind of a thing, but I thought it was very funny where they stop some young girls, I think, who were speeding. And it turns out they're like 12 and 13-year-old kids who don't have a thing. And so there's an incident with where Arnie and Malcolm and the baseball bat. You want to just tell us what happened there?
Yeah. They were on their way somewhere else, and all of a sudden they hear the siren and the screaming, and here comes a car around the corner, and so they realize the police are chasing this car, and so they block the path of the car, and they get out. Of course, the windows are tinted; they can't see in it. But Malcolm draws his gun and demands that whoever's in it get out, and they don't move. So he asks one of the police officers on the scene to bring his shotgun and just aim it at the window and start pulling the trigger, which of course he knows is not going to happen, but whoever's inside doesn't. So when the door opens and they get out, there are about 3 or 4 little girls, probably 12 years old. And, of course, Malcolm immediately is just so angry at what they've done here that he decides to try to teach them a lesson. So he immediately tells Arnie to go get a baseball bat. And, of course, Arnie quickly realizes what Malcolm's going to do here. Mentions to him that they hadn't gotten the blood off the bat from the last time, and he says, "I don't care, go get it anyway." And of course, Arnie grabs one of the little girls. When none of them will talk, he grabs one of the little girls and goes behind a car and to ask her, "Do you want me to hit you with this?" And of course, she says no. He says, "And whenever time I hit the ground, you better start screaming." So he starts pounding the ground. Little girl screams, and the driver, who is really snotty and hateful and arrogant, immediately becomes very docile when she hears all that.
Okay. It's a great scene. Okay. Now we find out that Lindstrom, who is the altar boy's father, has stomach cancer. He has only 3 months to live, and he's got to finish the killings basically before he dies.
Yes.
Okay, and you go ahead.
No, go ahead. Of course, he realizes his time is running out, and he's got several things here that are in his way as far as getting to Bishop Davis, and one of them is the father that actually takes the confessions at the church, and so he's got to figure out some way to get rid of him first without calling any attention to it being another murder. So.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, that's good, and then they find out that during this time that Father Stansel has kept a diary. They didn't know that, and there is. I won't give this away, but they find out where that diary is, and they get a whole different look at what's going on here. Then there's a subplot that we enter, and that is in the form of Leland Dorsey. Tell us about him.
Well, he's a lifetime criminal who had a brother named Ray. And about 20 years before Maxine met Arnie, she was in a bank, and Ray came in and robbed the bank and killed a guard, and she was the only one that actually saw his face. And so at a criminal trial, she identified him as the killer, which, of course, put Ray on death row. And Ray was executed. And, of course, Leland is determined that Maxine's going to pay for this. He's just now getting out of prison after being in there 20 years himself, but this is something that he's not going to let go of. He's going to make Maxine pay for this.
All right. And there's bodies start showing up. There's a body of a drunk found, and he's got an R painted on his forehead.
Yeah. He's very, very vicious. He wants to kind of tell them what's coming by putting letters on the foreheads of these people he kills, and he just plays a mind game with Malcolm and Arnie, trying to let them know that he's there.
Okay. And before it's done, there's a body in a laundromat with an A, and then there's a prostitute found dead with a Y on her bed. Okay, I want to go back a little bit now because there is one. The other case is still going. They're working all of these cases at the same time. And and then there's a very frightening dog attack on Father Jeffries. You want to tell us about that one?
Well, that was the last obstacle that Gabriel Lindstrom thought was in his way in an effort to kill Bishop Davis. He had to get this priest out of the way. So he goes and buys a attack dog and hides in the cemetery because he knows that the priest runs all the time. He's been watching him. And the priest is on a run and goes through the cemetery, and then he releases this Doberman Pinscher to go after him. And, of course, he violently attacks the priest and almost kills him. If it hadn't been for another man, his wife, in the cemetery visiting their daughter's grave, then Father Jeffries would have been killed. But regardless, he's taken out of the equation because he's so torn up and hurt so badly that he can't go back to the church. So now Lindstrom's got a free rein to get to Davis.
Okay, and we're not going to go any further with that plot because we could make him buy the book to find out that one. There's a couple of things else a couple other things I want to talk about before we start talking about you, and they really don't have anything to do with the plot. Although there is a part at the end, Gladys, who we met at the beginning in the traffic jam. The 93-year-old woman, she's back. They get a call, and now she's got a pistol pointed at the head of a police officer.
Yeah. Well, of course, I hated to do that to her. I mean, I'll my characters, you kind of get to where you like what you're doing with them. But she's 92, and they get a phone call that says that she's asked for them. And, of course, they're clueless. They don't know what in the world, this woman wants. And when the dispatcher describes her to them, they both realize it's Gladys. So they head over to Central Park, and she's sitting there on a bench with a police officer between her legs and a gun that she has pointed at the back of his head. And it takes them a while to realize that she has Alzheimer's, and she doesn't know where she is, and so it's a pretty gut-wrenching scene there for especially them.
Right.
We don't try to figure out how to get her out of that.
Okay. Yeah, we don't want to tell how that ends up. And there's one other scene I just want to mention is where they have the jumper, and I have to tell you, I jumped. Well, I jumped out of the chair and part of this thing. Tell us just quickly about the jumper.
Well, of course, that's not their beat. They're not beat cops. They're detectives. But again, they were the closest people on the scene when the call came in. So they went to the hotel and went up there, and here was a guy on the roof determined to commit suicide. And they have very little sympathy. Again, maybe that's harsh on their part, but they have little sympathy for people who they think are stupid and are doing stupid things. So they get to talking back and forth to him and more or less giving him a hard time about why he's doing it. He's stupid for doing it, and the whole time that they're talking, one of the others distracting him, and so they finally get close enough to him to push him off the roof.
Okay, stop there. I'll tell the other. That's it. They push him off. That's when I jumped out of the chair. They pushed him off the roof. Anyway, okay. I want to stop here because I don't want to give away any more of the plot. But most of the action is actually still ahead. And I have to tell listeners, this is really, really a terrific short novel. If you've got a cross-country flight or any flight ahead of you, or you want something to take to the beach, I promise you this is a better book and a better read than you will find in any of the book stands at the airport or wherever you're trying to buy them. This is a really, really interesting, entertaining book. Tell us, Dan, how they can buy the book.
Well, they can get it, of course, through Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or they can go to my website, www.outskirtspress.com/ and there's a link there that they can purchase the book there.
Okay, all right. Now let's talk about you for a minute. I hope there's a sequel coming to this because you've gotten so much out of this book, and these two characters, these two cops are terrific characters, and by the end of the book, you really know them. You not only know them, you know their family, you know their grandchild, and this is a really good book. So, is there a sequel planned?
Yes, I do have a sequel, and it's pretty much finished. It'll be probably 2 or 3, 4 months before I'm able to get it edited and get it out. That's not the next one that'll come out, though. I have one that'll be out somewhere around the 1st of June, but it doesn't have anything to do with Malcolm and Arnie. It's another story, completely different. Would you like to hear the name of that one?
Yeah, absolutely, and what it's about.
Well, it's How a Cockroach Saved a Dead Man.
Okay.
And it's it's a story of an innocent man on death row and how he escapes is what it is. But if you start trying to put Escape from Death Row on the internet, then you got 900 books and movies that come up with that. So I just changed the title because his escape from death row is pretty unique.
Okay, and you've written a couple of books before this. I guess detective books, or?
Yes, well, one is called Bounty Hunter, the first one I wrote. It is a Western, And it is a guy who's trying to find a faceless killer. Nobody's ever seen him and lived. And in the process of that, I've thrown some obstacles in his path. He saves a rancher and falls in love with her, and then the Apaches capture him and torture him. So there's quite a bit going on there in his efforts to try to track this guy down. Second book was The Murders of Kate and Ellen, told in two parts. Part one, he's a rookie Chicago police officer who finds out that the things he learned at the academy don't necessarily help him on the streets, and he has some moral dilemmas he has to deal with, and because of it, he loses his job and moves to Montana, part two, and becomes a deputy sheriff there. And then, of course, has some other moral problems and horrible things he's got to deal with up there that I threw in his path.
Okay. I just had a question as I read and listened to this. You're a Texan and live in Texas, and yet now Malcolm and Arnie are New York cops, and I guess the guy in one of the other books at least starts out as a Chicago cop. You did that on purpose, obviously. So why not have them in Texas? Was there a reason, or?
No, didn't have a reason. I just. When I dream up somebody else, I may throw them in Houston. I don't know. I just
okay.
I just started in New York and Chicago. That's the only thing I can tell you.
Okay. Well, they're terrific books. Once again, give us the website because that seems to be a key always.
Okay, it's www.outskirtspress.com/Dan Price. That's my website.
Okay. We've been talking to Dan Price about his outstanding murder mystery kind of police procedural novel, What the Altar Boy Heard. Now stay tuned for the second half of our program right after these messages.